Thank you for the birthday wishes. Okay, our topic tonight is the 4 cups. We're going to be learning about the 4 cups of wine and what exactly is the purpose of the 4 cups. So you might know we've all been brought up on the fact that there are 4 lishonot of geula, v'hotzeti, v'itzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti, 4 ways that God redeemed us, and that's what the 4 cups are all about. But in fact, we're going to see from the Gemara that is not mentioned in our Gemara at all. And in fact, what we're going to see is that there might be a number of different purposes for the 4 cups. It might not just be one simple idea, but there might be different levels here. And in fact, there are going to be different levels here. And we're going to see that from the Gemara. So when we discussed reclining last week, we had a discussion about whether we talked about different aspects, that maybe it's symbolic, right? Maybe it's actual. Maybe we're trying to experience something. Or maybe we're just trying to remember what was then. So the same issues are going to come up this week about how do we view these 4 cups of wine? What purpose are they serving? If you learned the Mishnayot, the first class, I had suggested that you look back and read all the Mishnayot of the chapter. So if you had a chance to do that, what you notice is that the Seder is according to the Mishnah, the Seder is organized by the 4 cups, right? It tells you exactly when you're supposed to pour them. And it tells you when you're supposed to drink them. And there's a very set time for everything. What I wanted to point out is we've talked about the Tosefta, right? Again, not to be confused with Tosfot. Tosfot is a commentary on the Gemara living, many, many years after the Gemara. The Tosefta was written at the same time as the Mishnah. And it was another book that's a parallel book to the Mishnah. When you look in the Tosefta, it starts off in the beginning of the Tosefta and it talks about the 4 cups just as it talks about the poor person in our Mishnah. Remember, our Mishnah had said, even make sure that a poor person, make sure they still get 4 cups of wine. So the Tosefta says exactly that. But further on in the Tosefta, when it discusses what happens at the Seder, it never once mentions pour a cup here, do it then, make the bracha then. There's nothing in the Tosefta that indicates this particular order, which is very interesting because it could be that there were different approaches even then in the time of the Tanaim about them. We're so used to 4 cups and this is when you do it and this is when you pour and this is how you do it. So that's just one interesting point. The other thing I want to point out before we start is that the 4 cups is a mitzvah midrabanan. It's rabbinic. It's not written in the Torah anywhere. Never says in the Torah you have to drink wine. It never says in the Torah you have to drink wine at different points. None of this comes up by Torah law. It's all rabbinic in nature. Before we start, there's 2 more things I want to talk about. One really that I want to talk about, and the next is just to kind of throw you into chavruta, which is when they drank wine in those days, they diluted their wine. Their wine was made up of a concentrate, and it was a quarter in general. There's a debate about it, but usually it was a quarter concentrate and 3/4 water. Okay, so 3 parts water to 1 cup wine. And the concentrated wine, which we're going to talk about today, which is called chai in the Gemara, it's the raw form, that's what chai usually means. That is a very strong wine. People didn't generally drink it like that. They always diluted it. So you have to understand their reality. So when it talks about, in the Mishnah, for example, it says limzog kos, which we use the word limzog to pour. They didn't mean to pour. They meant to mix your wine with water. Okay, so it's important to understand the reality of their time when you learn these sugiyot. And the next thing I just want to say is the first part of chavruta is almost exclusively about women and the 4 cups, or women obligated in the 4 cups, a very famous Gemara that we're going to learn tonight. So that's where I'm throwing you into chavruta. But what I did in the chavruta, the first section of the chavruta is to try to do punctuation. Okay, Maggie did a great job of creating a PDF that you can actually write in, where the text is there and you can write in it. Hopefully it'll all work smoothly. So hopefully you can punctuate on the page. If you have any issues, you can just sort of go through it on your own, do it verbally, try to come up with punctuation. You'll notice that the whole first section I gave you in the Gemara to punctuate is not all, we're not going to learn all of it in the first section. We're going to learn part of it in the second section, and we're really only going to focus on the first line in the first section. Okay, I just want to pull up for a quick minute so you see. Okay, we're going to be learning. I know not all of you are using Gemara, so I want to just get you used to what a page of Gemara looks like. So we're learning Daf Kuf Chet, the 10th parak still, right? We're going to be learning the whole time the 10th chapter. This is the page we learned last week. We're now at the very bottom of the page. We skipped about 2 lines, And now we're at the very last line. That's the main line that you're going to be learning in the first part of Chavruta. And then you'll see there's a little bit more. I'm just going to share my screen now with the other page. And then we're going to be basically learning through this whole page. Okay, so the whole second side, most of that will be done in the second part of the Chavruta. The first part of the Chavruta is more going in depth into some of the Rishonim. And I'll just say right now that there was a little error. I realized that there's one source that doesn't appear in the second set of Chavruta. Thank you. Somebody pointed that out to me before class. So I will make sure before the second Chavruta, we will send that text in the chat. So you will have that text. It's a very short text. We'll send it, and I'll send it also in Hebrew and in English for those who need the translation. Okay, with that, you can get started with Chavruta. We'll have 18 minutes of Chavruta for the first Chavruta, and then we'll come back together.